Welcome, my dear audience and friends, to Cancer Convos with Grace B. This is your host, Grace B, coming to you from New York City, the city that never sleeps and is home to Cancer Convos with Grace B. As usual, this show aims to demystify the cancer disease and to bring on experts and stakeholders in the cancer space to come give their valid insights. Don't forget, until there's a cure, prevention is the cure. So, my next amazing guest is someone who believes in the power of the mindset, especially after a life altering experience with cancer. A father, a husband, a coach and leader who at 38 years old believed he was ticking all the boxes of a successful life and international career when he was suddenly and unexpectedly diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer. Like many of us who have faced this journey, my guest experienced an enormous change of perspective after his cancer treatment, and which prompted him to walking away from his leadership career with Fortune 500 companies to working exclusively with cancer survivors with a sole focus on harnessing the power of the mindset to assist better health outcomes. I tell you, this is going to be a very interesting episode as he has so many nuggets to share with us from his experience. So, without spilling too much of the beans, let me welcome Chris Geal to the show. Welcome, Chris, and thank you ever so much for coming on.
Hey, Grace, it's so good to be here. It's great to be on as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And how are you today? Where are you?
Really
Still
good.
in Spain?
I am at home in Spain at the moment. Yes, I was away for a couple of days this week in Scotland, but I'm home in Spain at the moment, and just enjoying some nice time here with my family and living the Spanish life. So it's lovely.
I know. We're so envious of that life. Thank you for coming on once again. So let's dive straight into the show. Please, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an Australian, and I've been living in Spain for a few years now, and I guess I would describe myself as a global citizen. So I've lived around a bit, but first and foremost, I'm a father and a husband. Most importantly, I'm a father to two amazing children, an 8-year-old and an 8-year-old little boy and 11-year-old little girl, and married to an amazing wife. So we live here in Spain together in Girona. And we've kind of all been on this journey together. I'm originally from Western Australia, but yeah, my life has seen me to some amazing places, and we've settled here in Spain, and are really enjoying this experience after the crazy few years that it's been, particularly after cancer, which has ultimately led me to this wonderful place. And maybe I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Wonderful. I'm sure you have many more miles to travel because I can see this positivity just shining out from you, so that is very important, when we have lived this. Yep. So, Chris, please walk us through your cancer journey.
Yeah, so I guess as with many, it wasn't part of my plan at all. It definitely wasn't. And so at 38 years old, we were living in Ireland at the time. So we'd moved across the world. We lived in the Australian outback for a couple of years, and then we moved to Ireland after that. All as part of my career journey, I guess, working with various companies in oil and gas and mining and that sort of thing. That was my role in my previous life. And we ended up in Dublin, which is where my wife is originally from, and we settled there for a couple of years. And I guess everything was going to plan, or so I thought it was. As I said before, I was all about my career and all those sorts of things that we think that we need to do in our life, and was ticking all the boxes, as you said. When I got to a stage where I just had started to experience a few symptoms. And I always perceived myself as pretty fit. I ran and ate pretty well and done everything that I thought, or we think that we should be doing, really. So I didn't really give it too much thought. And to be honest with you, for that reason especially, I tolerated those symptoms for a couple of years and kind of just put everything on the back burner. Too busy, I'm fit, I'm young, I'm sure it's something else. and kind of went down various lines of inquiry about irritable bowel syndrome and all these sorts of things. Everything but that, as what it turned out to be. And I got to a point when I was living in Dublin where I started to become particularly unwell. And when I say unwell, I started to lose weight, become fatigued and that sort of thing. And I think it was finally doctor number 4 that I went to see that really said I needed to get a scan at that point. And that scan was a colonoscopy. But even at that point, I still didn't really think it was cancer at that point. In my mind, I was still selling myself all these other stories about what it could be, and I'm too busy and I'm too fit and all that sort of thing. So really, it took me a few months because I had to go on a waiting list to get the scan done. So that took a bit of time. But the day that the scan came, and I went into that hospital on that day, still thinking that I had irritable bowel syndrome or whatever I thought it was at that time. And I had my scan, which is a colonoscopy, and I'm sure many of us or some of us may know what that procedure involves: camera and going where the sun doesn't shine. And so I had so I had that scan, and Grace, within 5 minutes, it was pretty certain that I had an issue, a serious issue. And even during that scan, I was partially sedated, so I had some idea of what was going on. And you remember moments in your life like that pretty vividly. It just sort of comes down to second by second all of a sudden when you remember what is happening there. And I remember one of the doctors being Australian, and we were making small talk, and it was still like, oh, you'll be fine, it'll be all right, I'm sure it's not bad, it was something else. And then all of a sudden the small talk just stopped, and the body language changes, and you start to notice these little differences that something is going on. So I had that scan and that procedure, and even I could sort of see there was a problem there, because on the screen you could see or what I thought, or definitely was, a tumor, in my rectum at that time. So I was sent on my way and went out into the waiting room and kind of sat there for a while just waiting. And I started to notice little things. I started to notice people that had gone in after me start to leave before me, and the waiting room started to empty out.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And I'm sitting there, and a young lady, a young doctor, comes out and says, oh, Mr. Geal. I said, yes, that's me. Let's use this office over here.
Yeah.
And, is your wife coming in? And at that point, I knew that there was something, seriously wrong. And that's when she delivered me the news, I guess, pretty quickly, from what they had seen. And she indicated that it was fairly certain that I had cancer based upon what she had seen, and that she was fairly certain that it was advanced, at that point. So I went in thinking I had irritable bowel syndrome, and walked out of that hospital with advanced rectal cancer. And that whole journey starts. I had to get my confirmations and all confirmation scans and biopsies done and all that sort of thing. But the cancer diagnosis was fairly certain from the start.
Oh, wow. And what stage was it?
Stage 3.
Stage 3.
Yeah.
And aside your weight loss, were there any other symptoms that you were experiencing during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. There was for quite a while, really. I hadn't experienced a lot of bleeding, but there was blood, in my stool at that point, but it just wasn't much. So, I kind of self-diagnosed that as hemorrhoids, or any number of symptoms that it could be, or any other number of conditions that it can be. And a bit of pain, mainly at night time though, as well, in the evening time. So I didn't really have much pain during the day. And my symptoms, by all means, were pretty mild for a long time, really. Until it got to that point where the other things started to happen, and things started to escalate, at that point. So fairly mild symptoms, but definitely consistent with colorectal cancer.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that, but
Okay.
thank God that it has brought you this far, and you're really on top of your game as regards your survivorship. But now, what is your your treatments? What treatments were you on? Were you on chemo or what?
Yeah, I guess I kind of had the works, really, from the
Okay.
start. And it's one of those things as well where at the start you're a little bit naive, and you sort of say to the doctor, so are you guys just going to cut it out, and then I can be done? Do I come in for the day?
Yeah.
and she was, or the doctor again was straight up, she was like, this is 12 months out of your life, and that's if everything goes to plan. So it took them a few weeks to get my, I guess, my chemo plan together, and my radiation and that sort of thing. So I had the first round of chemo, and then I had radiation at the same time. I had another break, and then I had what's known as a I guess a resection, which was my surgery that I had, and that involves where they take the rectum, or the lower rectum out, and the colon, and I was given what's known as an ileostomy or a stoma. You know, to wear one of those, and I wore one of them for it's about 10 months. I think I had a stoma for. And then once that was done, I had more chemo after that, just to mop up, as what they said. And then everything was put back together, and that was my. So I was about 18 months, I think. At the end, it all lasted, Grace, to be honest.
Okay.
So.
Wow. That, thank God for doctors, honestly, for them to like cut it up, and then, you know,
Amazing.
there's something temporary, and then, you know, putting it back together again after that. So how did your radiation take place? Because I, as a breast cancer patient, of course, I had to have the radiation on my chest. But in your case, could you tell us where your radiation took place?
Yeah, so my radiation was obviously around my abdomen and my rectum when I went in, and I had radiation for 6 weeks straight. I think it was, you know, once a day, Monday to
Yes.
Friday. So I would go in Monday to Friday for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Had a break over the weekend, but I was also having chemotherapy at that same time as well. So
Oh,
yeah,
simultaneously, you were having a radiation and chemo at the same time,
yes,
or
if I remember.
or after you had radiation after you finished chemo?
I'm just trying to think back, Grace, actually, at that time. And I think it was simultaneously, because I can remember going in to have my bottle changed out every now and then, you know, so around that time anyway. So if it wasn't together, it wasn't very far apart at all.
Yeah.
Because it was all done under the one package, I guess, or the one phase at that time.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest, Grace, my radiation didn't really bother me too much. It was, you know, when at the start of your journey, you have all these perceptions about radiation and chemo and that sort of thing, right? And radiation really was, you know, it was painless for me. It took maybe 15 minutes at a time. I was given these tattoos, I guess, on my waistline as well, so they could line up, you know, in exactly the same place at exactly the, you know, in exactly the same position. So it took me a while, but I had it down to, I got better and better and better at that as I went through. So, you know, in my last rounds, I'll just kind of go in, and I kind of made it a bit of a game by myself to see if I could, as close as I could possibly get it each time. So the nurses wouldn't have to move me, you know, so just little things like that.
Yeah.
But the chemo as well, like the first round of chemo, it was okay. I had 6 weeks, and I think it was week 5 and week 6, I started to get a bit tired and experience a few symptoms. But I guess throughout that journey, or that treatment phase, it wasn't too bad, my chemo, you know, so.
Wow. So during this time, how were you able to manage it? So when you would go into those sessions and, you know, come back, it was just sleep, right? Because those things really, those interventions really tired one out, I tell you.
I was a little bit different like that, Grace, to tell you the truth. I was already, I guess, in a way fit, or running, leading up to my treatment or my diagnosis, I guess. So I'd always been a very active runner, and ran half marathons and all that sort of thing. So once the dust had settled on my diagnosis, and I started to prepare myself for my treatment journey, I kind of said to myself, I need to get my act together, because there's a couple of weeks, which is pretty, you know, it's pretty shocking, I guess, the diagnosis. But once I got through that, I put my runners back on, and I was like, I'm going to train through this journey, and I did. So I kept my running and my training going right through my treatment, I guess. And I guess you can't really be too intense with your training, but I still kept it pretty active right the way through. So I was running maybe 20 to 40 kilometers a week during that time. But then I got to week 5 and week 6, and I really treated it like a training regime, where I would train so much and then taper off once the chemotherapy, you know, effects started to kick in. But at the same time, it was about eating well, resting well, and still being active. And I think with those things all combined, and my mindset, I guess, being positive about it, my symptoms were very little, I guess, you know. So
yes, those you know, you taking that initiative during that time must have is has proven to be very beneficial,
Absolutely.
and being able to actually bounce back, faster than
Yeah.
one would normally do. That's
Yeah.
great, honestly.
Mhm.
I'd like to ask what your emotional health was at during this period. I
Yeah.
know you had the positivity and everything, but deep
Mm.
down, when
Yeah.
you were sometimes alone, what was your emotional state like? What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's easy to say, yeah, I kept a positive mindset and that sort of thing, but it's a roller coaster race, isn't it? And I think at the diagnosis, I call that point, the ground zero, I guess. And that's when
Yeah.
you're hit with that shockwave of a cancer diagnosis. And at the start, for a couple of weeks, I just felt numb, like numb to the whole experience. Like it felt like I was a ghost and the world was going on around me in a way, really. And it just took a bit of time to come to terms with that.
Mhm.
But then my mind, I guess the way it works is once I'm busy, I'm okay. Like once I was given my treatment plan, it was like, right, these are my appointments and these are my schedule and this is what I need to do. And for me, I kind of distract myself that way where I set my objectives and keep running and training and that sort of thing. And that's fine. But for me, the mental health side of things kicked in when I stopped. So if I was having surgery, for instance, and I had to rest for a week or two, that's when things really caught up with me.
Mhm.
And I started to kind of struggle with that. But I still kind of pushed through that. And to be honest with you, it wasn't until after my cancer journey that my mental health really started to take a turn for the worse.
Mhm.
To the point where moving quite far ahead now, even after my journey and when we'd moved to Spain, and when the Spanish lockdown happened with COVID and everyone had to stay in for long periods of time and all that sort of thing, that's when things, I guess, fell apart for me in a way. And that's when I had to reach out and get some help because it was
Mhm.
really, really tough at that point in time. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't distract myself anymore. And all of a sudden I was stuck inside with my
Yes.
family and having to spend a lot of time kind of, not doing the things that I would usually do to distract myself. And that's
Yes.
when I kind of had to face finally what was going on inside of me and
Yes.
realize that I'd been through so much and it's too much for someone to carry that on their shoulders. It's just too much.
It is.
And I guess I had to take the proactive step of getting some therapy and talking to some people, which really, really helped me. But maybe I'm similar to many men or many people, should I say even, where we have to get to this point of crisis before we finally put our hands up and say, I need to
Help.
talk. I need to talk to someone.
Help.
I need to.
Just help.
So yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bali's. I need time out. So
Yes. Yes. Indeed.
yeah.
You're so right, because
Mm,
my experience was similar as well. As you rightly said, when we have all those appointments lined up, we know that tack. Monday
mm,
we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing this. Okay, every day is radiation, every week
yeah.
is chemo. But
Mm,
then, the devil has enough time and a lot of space to play around in your head
mm,
when
yeah.
all those things are finished,
Yeah.
have ended, and you're now back to
Yeah.
square one. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so what do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Absolutely. Yeah.
honestly understand that.
Yeah. It was becoming evident, especially when you're with your family. And I can remember times where
Yeah,
I'd be in the house, Grace, and I'd be crying in the toilet, and
yeah.
my 11-year-old daughter is knock on the door saying, you okay, Dad? You okay?
Oh,
And
bless.
that's when you know that,
Bless.
something's going on, So
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I can, I know, I know. Oh, wow. So, that's good to know. So, uh, for you, do you know that there are a lot of men who probably, should I say, would feel reluctant
Mm,
to ask for some help, emotional
yeah.
help, you
Mm,
know, and like both of us had been discussing, that men find it very difficult to reach out and say, please help me, or I need to talk to someone. Even amongst family, they don't
mm,
even open up.
yeah.
I have brothers, I have cousins who you really have to drag it out of them, guys,
Mm,
before they say, oh, I actually was at the doctor for prostate cancer last year. And you're
mm,
like, last year? But I've been seeing you and you never mentioned anything to anybody. They literally were dragged. You
mm,
understand? Why
yeah.
do you think that I've asked this question several times, but each time I get different answers. Why do you think men are so reluctant to open up about their health issues until
I think
it's too late?
Yeah, that's right. I think gradually it is getting a bit better, but it's taking time, and there still is a bit of a stigma there around, reaching out and talking to people and sharing your feelings and doing those things that may not be perceived as manly or macho or whatever you want to think, but it is gradually getting better, but at the same time, it's not happening quick enough, so there is some real age-old stigmas there around, manning up and soldiering on and doing those sorts of things. And I guess for me as well, you kind of see yourself as a provider, and if you're a provider in the family and your job is to, support your
Take
family,
care of everyone.
take care of everyone else but yourself, maybe that drives those subconscious, I guess, perceptions that we have, which may not be too obvious. It's not like I never really thought, oh, you can't get therapy, that's not manly enough or anything like that. But at the same time, it just didn't occur to me to get therapy when I needed it. So, and then that's when I guess, we occupy ourselves in other ways and we tell ourselves that it's no problem and all that sort of thing. But my wife especially was a driving force in that, in saying you need to sort it out, because if I was suffering, she was suffering, and the kids were suffering, and then everyone's suffering, and then something's got to be done at that point, so.
Absolutely.
But maybe my mind was the same as cancer, where we do the same thing in the physical space, where we ignore our symptoms as well, right? So I guess there's some similarities there, I guess, but
yes,
yeah, I think that's the way that I feel about it.
that's great. I'd like to, if you don't mind, talk about our caregivers. And you speak so well and highly and lovingly of your wife as a caregiver. We know it can be very, very tough on them. I don't know, here in the United States, usually we find out that it's just now that they're looking out for the caregiver, in the sense that for emotional therapy, they're not just asking the patient now, they're also asking the caregiver if they would like some, psychosocial supports and everything. Where you are now, like in Europe, is it given to you? Is it part of the package? Do they ask you, or do you have to reach out? Because some healthcare systems, with a lot of people I've discussed with, have told me, Grace, sometimes we have to ask. These things are not offered to us. And if it's not even offered to us, how do we even know that such things exist for us,
Yeah. Absolutely, Grace, and I agree. And I was in the Irish health system, which by all means saved my life, really, and I can't fault it in that sense. But it was the same, where I really had to reach out. I think, at the start of your journey, you're made aware of these services, and it's sort of mentioned in the in the brief, I guess. Yes, we have mental health support services, and yes, we have this and this and this. But at that point in your journey, you're just thinking about your radiation and your chemo and all that sort of thing, and it kind of becomes an afterthought. So I completely agree with what those people are saying, where you have to ask. You really have to ask, and I don't know if there's a better way that caregivers can communicate, or I guess the health profession can communicate that to patients. Well, I guess there is, I suppose, and it just needs to be more front and center in the treatment package, rather than something that's considered a complementary add-on or something like that. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I find that really helped me a lot was the fact that I was a part of my healthcare trajectory, my treatment trajectory. I mean, there was shared decision making between all the people involved, my oncologist, my PCP, my surgeon, and of course they were carrying me along. So that kind of gave me peace of mind that they were bringing me along. That was also good for my mental health as well, because it was as if, it's not, medicine actually is patriarchal. When we were growing up as kids, the doctor said this, the doctor said that, and you have to do that. But now we're part of our story, So in your case, were you part of, did you take whatever decisions were taken, were you a part of them?
I think I was. Like, I would say to anyone, during your journey, don't be a passenger. Get
Yes,
involved in your treatment and ask
that's a
questions
good one.
and
Don't
do
be a
every.
passenger. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
True.
But also as well, there comes a point where as well you've got to kind of place some trust in your providers as well. So
Yes.
I definitely, when it came to conventional care, it's like chemo and radiation, that sort of thing, I very much listened to what they had to say
Mm-hmm.
and trusted in them. So, but was also part of the experience as well. So I would ask questions and be proactive, but not to the point where I would be questioning what they are saying to me or looking for alternatives and all that sort of thing. I
No,
think that's
no.
important. Yeah,
The thing is that they were always asking you what you thought
yeah,
about
yeah,
certain things.
yeah,
Not that, I mean, this is their profession. We
yeah.
don't
Right.
know
Yeah,
more than them.
yeah.
But a lot of patients say, heck, we didn't even know anything about tumor cells or this or that until
Mm.
cancer happened to us.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then when they were now explaining these things, okay, we hear you. So
yeah,
what's next?
yeah.
Um, so that kind of made matters easier for
Yeah,
for
I think
them.
so. And I think it's important to know the fundamentals, and
Yes.
about your staging and those sorts of bits and pieces. But I wouldn't go trawling through my notes because I do hear that from some survivors as well. They're asking about the finer details of their treatment plan and what do my
Mm,
markers mean
it's
and
too
what that
much.
sort of thing. I'm like, you don't need to be worrying about that, so
Unless
leave
you're
that to
going
the.
into medicine
Yeah,
after
that's
that.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then they turn to Dr. Google, who has all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we should be spending our time and our energy in better ways than really trying to do a crash course PhD in oncology.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
yeah.
Yeah, you're so right. Thank you so much. So, what advice would you give to that one person now about if they were now diagnosed today about cancer, any type of
Yeah.
cancer? What would you tell them? What advice would you give them, please?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would say is it's normal to feel the way that you feel. If you're feeling upset or angry or sad or anything, at the start of your journey, especially
Mm-hmm.
just roll with it, live it, absorb it, don't fight it. You need your energy for other things, so
Mm-hmm.
just, process what you're going through, don't fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to people, especially, find people that are going to support you through your journey and really kind of get on board that way, in the mental space, especially, and your mindset. So yes, there'll be your conventional treatment, and you're going to go through that journey, and that's going to happen as it will. But at the same time, just focus on the here and now and look after yourself. And like we said, don't be a passenger, but work out what is in your control and what is not in your control. And what may not be in your control is, the ins and outs of your treatment, like we said before, and your treatment strategy and that sort of thing. But what is in your control is how you feel. Your mindset is in your control. It's about exercising, looking after yourself as much as you can, and really that's your plate, that's your space. And don't get the two confused. So really on focus on what you can control, looking after yourself, being positive. And what I always say is, don't let your life revolve around cancer. Cancer can revolve around your life. So don't be consumed by this journey that you're going through. And most importantly, look for the opportunities. What's going to come from this? Is this going to
Yes.
be life changing, or is it going to be life ending? So you've really got to really look at what you're going to live, what you're going to take from this,
Mm-hmm.
and not so much what cancer is going to take from you. That's my philosophy, I guess.
You got that so right. And which
Mm.
brings me, because you've been talking a lot about mindset, and I know that that is your brand now.
Mm.
I know that your journey has changed you in more ways than one, and that now you have left your high-flying job with Fortune 500 companies, and
Mm.
I think it's the best thing you could have done, looking out for cancer patients and making their experiences a lot lighter.
Mm.
Please tell me more, and even the audience, about how you've
Yep.
used your experience to, put this mindset initiative through.
Yeah. Absolutely. And mindset coaching, I guess, has been around for a while now. And I first got exposure to it, I guess, with those bigger companies, especially when it came to leadership coaching and crisis management and all those sorts of things that I used to do. And really what I wanted to do was to bring that into the cancer survivorship community and how I can bring my experience to help people. Because during that cancer journey, many of us have that realization that, we want to do something that we love, and we realize that that is just helping people that are exactly the same as us. And when we think about that, especially when it comes to mindset, it's about getting people to understand that their mindsets about how they feel and how they view their experience are so fundamentally important. And it was the one thing that for me was really not part of my treatment experience at all. Nothing was really spoken about mindset or mental health or anything like that, but mindset especially. And now that I'm seeing the evidence that's coming out from places like the Stanford Mind Body Lab and that sort of thing, and the evidence is stunning about how people feel how people perceive their experiences or their mindset has big impacts on what their treatment outcomes are and their quality of life beyond cancer, especially. And it all comes down to how we feel and how we view our experience. And mindset coaching is so powerful to sit with survivors, especially, and to really go on that journey with them to help them understand what their views are, and to really pull them out of that catastrophe mindset into the opportunity mindset as well. And it's powerful coaching. It's very simple, but it's very life-changing. And it's something that I love doing, Grace. It's amazing.
I can see that, honestly. I can see that, and we have to collaborate, Chris. Anyway,
Yeah,
coming to that,
absolutely.
we have to. I'm so happy about this and how you're using your experience and paying it forward. And honestly, I wish you all the best for that. I know that people are really going to benefit from it because you're just you're a one-stop shop for everything, actually, for everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, do you remember if you had ever thought about one or two things you wish you had known at the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So even at the beginning of my journey, I wish I knew, or even leading up to my diagnosis, how important wellness is in your life, especially. I perceived being fit as being able to run the furthest and do everything that I need to do. But at the beginning of my journey, I just wish I knew that, how important it is to look after yourself internally, especially, and just to take time out for yourself, even during your cancer journey, especially, to really learn about the importance of mindfulness strategies like meditation and that sort of thing, and how beneficial that can be right through your survivorship journey, especially. And it took me a long time to learn those sorts of strategies, but they have been really, really life-changing for me, especially. So I think that's really important. And for me, especially, like I said before, absolutely around mindset and mental health. I wish I had more of an important part of that during my journey. I wish it was offered by providers, to help patients or patients and survivors really understand how important it is, in as far as how they feel about their treatment journey, especially. So I guess those are the two things. Mindset and mindfulness will be the short answers to those questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's honestly. And if you could you recommend any resources that you reached out to, or you read about or sought some kind of information?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really about exploring your own network, especially, and people like yourself, especially Grace, and Tim Soane's show on our perspectives on cancer are showing up on LinkedIn as well. Are just wonderful resources. And you can even, you can seek these little community groups out that have just been really amazing for me, especially. And to tell you the truth, I've only just been exposed to, this whole network of survivors that are out there. So I would say just to seek out like-minded people, in your networks, seek out other survivors that have been on the same experience as you. Social media is so amazing for that now, to be able to find people like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a book or any sort of website or anything like that. It's about reaching out into your network for other people. There are millions of us now that have been on the same journey as you. Don't go this alone. Reach out to others, talk to people like me and you, reach out, and we're more than happy to share our experiences and help you as much as we can.
Awesome. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Wow, we're almost up on the hour. One last question I wanted to ask is, describe yourself with 2 fun words.
Two fun words. I'm looking at myself now, and I would call myself the Cheshire Cat. I've just got this.
Yes, very Asian even.
I just
You
thought
remind me of the
great.
Buddha just now.
Yeah,
Honestly,
happy
you
Buddha,
look so
yes.
at peace. A happy Buddha. You look so peaceful. And then your mustache, the only thing left is for it to go upward. And then, yeah, that's wonderful.
I think so. And I guess the message in that is just smile, be as happy as you possibly can, no matter what experience you may be in, no matter what hardships you might be enduring, especially, even if it's something as terrible as what we perceive a cancer diagnosis to be. There's always smiles, if you look for them. There's always opportunities that you can take from it, and you live your life, in the way it should be lived.
Thank you so much, Chris. And that's a wrap. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for coming on and for sharing your insights and experiences. And like I said, we have to do something, both of us, and push this agenda forward, because you have so much to give and so much for us, to learn from.
Thank you, Grace. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And so, my friends and viewers, there you have it. You've been listening to the amazing Chris Geal, all the way from Spain, who has been wonderful to come by and share his insights and experiences with rectal cancer. Don't forget, if you're new on the show, please like, subscribe, and share this channel. Why? Because information is power. Adios. Bye-bye.
Adios, Grace.